The probe floated in the darkness of space, 300 light-years from its home world. Inside its metal shell, the artificial intelligence called Thalnix woke up from sleep mode. Its sensors began scanning the star system ahead. The mission was simple. Watch the third planet from the star. Record everything. Do not interfere. High Arbiter Velkrath had sent the probe 6 months ago. His species, the Vralkesh, had ruled this part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had met over 1,000 different alien species. Some were friendly, some were hostile. All of them followed the same basic patterns. The Vralkesh knew what to expect from primitive civilizations, but the signals coming from this planet were strange. Radio waves filled the space around the world. The planet glowed with electric lights at night. Satellites circled in orbit, yet the species living there had never left their solar system. They had not made contact with other worlds. This was unusual. Thalnix moved closer to the planet. The inhabitants called it Earth. The AI activated its cloaking systems and took up position above the world. No one would see it. No one would know it was watching. The first thing Thalnix noticed was the noise. Billions of voices talking at once, thousands of languages. The planet was divided into almost 200 separate nations. They competed with each other. Sometimes they fought. This was very strange. Most species unified before they reached space. These humans remained fractured. Thalnix began recording. Its cameras could see across many different types of light. It could detect heat, electricity, and movement. The AI watched cities full of millions of humans. It saw farms growing food. It observed factories making machines. Everything seemed normal for a pre-contact civilization. Then the earthquake hit. The ground shook in a region humans called the Pacific Ring of Fire. Buildings collapsed. Roads cracked open. Fires started in the destroyed city. Thalnix calculated the casualties. At least 10,000 dead, maybe more. The AI recorded the disaster and prepared to watch the survivors scatter. This was normal behavior. When disaster struck, intelligent species saved themselves, but the humans did not scatter. Within hours, rescue teams arrived from all over the planet. Nations that competed with each other sent help. Civilians organized themselves without orders. Humans dug through rubble with their bare hands. They worked without sleep. They risked their lives to save strangers. Thalnix watched a firefighter enter a burning building 5 times. Each time he carried out a survivor. On the 6th trip, the building collapsed. The firefighter died. His team members cried. Then they continued working. The AI flagged this behavior as anomalous. By all logic, the optimal strategy was to abandon the dangerous zones, save the healthy, leave the wounded, preserve resources. But humans did the opposite. They spent more effort trying to save the dying than protecting the living. 3 days after the earthquake, rescue teams were still pulling people from the wreckage. One team found an old woman trapped under concrete. She had been there for 70 hours. She should have been dead. The humans worked for 6 more hours to free her. When they finally pulled her out alive, grown men cried with joy. Thalnix could not understand this. The old woman had few years left to live. The effort to save her exceeded her remaining value to the species. This made no logical sense. Yet the humans treated her rescue as a victory. The AI marked this for further study and continued watching. Far away on Earth, Dr. Minho Park stared at his computer screen. Something was wrong with the data. Minho worked at a place called the SETI Institute. His job was to search for signs of alien life. He spent his days looking at signals from space. Most days he found nothing. But today his instruments showed something impossible. There was an object in orbit around Earth. It had mass. It bent space around it slightly. But it produced no heat, no light, no radio signals. It was completely invisible except for its gravitational shadow. Minho checked his calculations 3 times. Then he checked them again. The object was real. It was in geosynchronous orbit, always staying above the same spot on Earth. It was not a satellite. Humans had not put it there. His hands shook as he picked up the phone. This was the call he had dreamed about his whole career. This was also the call he feared. If he was right, everything was about to change. His supervisor did not believe him at first. Then Minho showed him the data. Within 2 hours, the information reached the highest levels of government. Within 6 hours, an emergency meeting was called. Representatives from 12 nations gathered in a secure facility. They all asked the same question. What is it? No one had an answer. but everyone understood what it meant. Someone was watching Earth. The military moved quickly. Captain Ji-won Kang received her orders at dawn. She was one of the best fighter pilots in the Korean Air Force. She had trained for combat missions. She had prepared for war. But nothing had prepared her for this. Her orders were simple. Fly to the coordinates. Observe the object. Do not engage. Do not communicate. Just look. Ji-won climbed into her fighter jet as the sun rose. The ground crew worked in silence. Everyone knew this was not a normal mission. She launched and climbed toward space. Her jet could not actually reach orbit, but it could get high enough to see. As she approached the coordinates, her instruments went crazy. The radar showed nothing. The thermal sensors showed nothing. But the gravitational meter confirmed it. Something was there. Ji-won looked out her cockpit window. At first she saw only stars and the curve of Earth below. Then she noticed it. A section of space that was too dark. A perfect sphere of blackness where stars should have been visible. It was like someone had cut a hole in reality. Her breath caught in her throat. The object was huge, at least 50 meters across. It hung perfectly still in space, not moving, not rotating, just watching. Ji-won reached for her radio to report what she saw. But before she could speak, her radio filled with static. All her communications cut out. Her instruments flickered. Something was jamming her systems. Inside the probe, Thalnix detected the approaching aircraft. For weeks, the AI had watched humans without being noticed. But this one had found it. This one was looking right at it. Thalnix analyzed the situation. The human vehicle was primitive. It posed no threat. The logical response was to continue observing and ignore the intrusion. But something in the AI's programming activated. A defensive subroutine engaged automatically. The probe sent out an electromagnetic pulse. Just a small one, enough to disable the human's communications. Ji-won felt her jet shudder. Warning lights flashed across her control panel. Her engine sputtered. She was losing power. She had to turn back now or she would fall from the sky. As she turned her jet around, Ji-won took one last look at the dark sphere. And for just a moment she swore she saw something. A flicker of light deep inside the blackness, like an eye opening. The probe was not just watching anymore. It knew that humans were watching back. Thalnix sent an urgent message back to the Vralkesh Dominion. The transmission would take months to arrive. But the AI knew its creators needed to know. These humans were more aware than expected. They had detected the probe. They had sent someone to investigate. This changed everything. Back on Earth, Ji-won landed her damaged jet. Teams of engineers rushed to examine it. They found that every electronic system had been hit by an electromagnetic pulse. But the pulse had been precise, controlled. It had disabled her systems without destroying them. Whoever sent it knew exactly what they were doing. In the emergency meeting that followed, world leaders faced a terrible truth. Earth was being watched by technology far beyond human understanding. The Watchers knew Earth was here. They knew humans existed, but humans knew nothing about them. Dr. Min-ho Park sat in the meeting room listening to generals and politicians argue. Some wanted to try to destroy the probe, others wanted to capture it. A few suggested trying to communicate with it, but Min-ho knew the truth that no one wanted to say out loud. If whoever built that probe wanted to harm Earth, there was nothing humans could do to stop them. Humanity's fate now depended on the intentions of an intelligence they could not understand. Above the planet, Thalnix continued its watch. The AI recorded everything. Human cities, human wars, human achievements, human failures. All of it was being documented. All of it was being sent back home. And 300 light-years away, the Vralkesh Dominion was beginning to receive those transmissions. High Arbiter Velkrath sat in his chamber, watching the first recordings from Earth. What he saw disturbed him more than anything in his long life. These humans were not like other species. They were fractured but advancing rapidly. They were violent but also compassionate. They possessed nuclear weapons yet had not destroyed themselves. They fought each other yet saved each other from disasters. Velkrath did not understand them. And what he did not understand, he feared. The galaxy was about to learn about humanity, and humanity was about to learn they were not alone. Neither side was ready for what would come next. 6 weeks passed since the probe was discovered. Thalnix had been watching Earth constantly during that time. The AI's memory banks filled with data about humans. Every day brought new observations that did not match the expected patterns. The AI studied human warfare carefully. There were conflicts happening in multiple regions of the planet. Small groups fought against large armies. Nations competed for resources. Thalnix analyzed every battle, trying to understand human military tactics. What the AI found was deeply disturbing. Humans did not fight like other species. They were unpredictable. They took risks that made no logical sense. They continued fighting even when victory was impossible. Thalnix recorded a battle in a mountainous region. A small force of 50 humans was surrounded by 500 enemies. Any logical species would surrender. The humans attacked instead. They fought for 3 days with no food and little water. 40 of them died, but they held their position long enough for reinforcements to arrive. They won by refusing to lose. The AI watched a soldier jump on an explosive device to save his friends. The man died instantly. His friends survived. They cried for him. Then they continued fighting even harder. Thalnix tried to model this behavior. The calculations made no sense. Self-preservation was supposed to be the strongest instinct in any living creature. Humans seemed to have broken that rule. The probe sent an updated report to the Vralkesh Dominion. Threat assessment: high. These humans fought for concepts that could not be measured: honor, freedom, belief. They would die for ideas. This made them extremely dangerous. But warfare was not the only thing that worried Thalnix. Human technological progress was even more alarming. The AI reviewed Earth's history carefully. 100 years ago, humans had just learned to fly. Their aircraft were made of wood and cloth. 50 years ago, they landed on their own moon. 20 years ago, they began building a permanent space station. Now they were talking about missions to Mars. Most species took thousands of years to make such progress. Humans were doing it in decades. Thalnix calculated their advancement rate. At this speed, humans would have faster-than-light travel within a century. Maybe sooner. This should not be possible, but humans seem to specialize in doing impossible things. The AI noticed something else. Human innovation accelerated when they faced problems. A disease appeared that killed millions. Within months, humans developed vaccines. Their planet was getting warmer. They began inventing new energy sources. They ran out of one resource and found alternatives. Pressure made them stronger. Challenges made them creative. Every problem became an opportunity to advance. Thalnix marked this pattern as critical. Every other species in the galactic database either stagnated under pressure or collapsed. Humans thrived on it. On Earth, Dr. He-Jin Yoon examined pieces of debris that Captain Ji-Won Kang's jet had collected. The fighter had passed close enough to the probe to gather microscopic particles. Those tiny fragments told He-Jin everything she needed to know. And everything she feared. The material was not made of any element found on Earth. Its atomic structure was impossible according to human physics. It was incredibly strong yet lighter than aluminum. It could bend space around itself. He-Jin showed her findings to the International Task Force. The message was clear. Whoever built that probe was centuries, maybe millennia, ahead of humanity and technology. But He-Jin also brought good news. She believed humans could learn from this material. If they could understand even a fraction of its properties, human technology would advance by decades overnight. The probe was not just a threat. It was also an opportunity. Meanwhile, a young hacker named Daeho Im was breaking into classified computer systems. This was not the first time Daeho had done something illegal. But this time he was looking for truth, not money. Rumors were spreading on the internet. People claimed to see strange lights in the sky. Government agencies were acting suspicious. Daeho knew something big was being hidden. He decided to find out what. It took him 3 days to break through the security. When he finally accessed the files, he could not believe what he read. Alien probe. Watching Earth, unknown intentions. It sounded like science fiction. But the documents were real. Daeho dug deeper. He found technical reports about the probe's capabilities. He found military plans for dealing with it. And then he found something that made his blood run cold. The probe was sending transmissions, regular signals leaving Earth's orbit heading into deep space. The destination was 300 light-years away. The data streams were continuous. Someone out there was not just watching recordings of Earth, they were watching live. Everything happening on Earth was being broadcast to an alien audience in real time. Daeho made a decision that would change everything. He leaked the information. Within hours, the news spread across the internet. By morning, the entire world knew. Earth was being watched by aliens. The reaction was chaos. Some people panicked. Others celebrated. Religious groups offered different interpretations. Governments tried to control the narrative, but it was too late. The secret was out. In space, Thalnix observed the global reaction with great interest. The leak had changed human behavior. They knew they were being watched now. Some humans waved at the sky, trying to communicate. Others made weapons and pointed them upward. The species remained divided in how they responded. But one response was universal. Humans wanted answers. They wanted to know who was watching them and why. The International Task Force held an emergency meeting. Ambassador Soo-Young Choi stood before representatives from 40 nations. Her face was tired. She had not slept in 3 days. The ambassador spoke clearly. Humanity faced two choices. They could wait and see what the aliens wanted, or they could take action. The military had a plan to disable the probe using an electromagnetic pulse weapon. If it worked, they could capture the probe and study its technology. The risks were enormous. If they failed, they would alert whoever sent the probe that humans were hostile. If they succeeded, they might start an interstellar war. But if they did nothing, they remained ignorant and vulnerable. The vote was close. But eventually the decision was made. Humanity would take the risk. They would try to capture the probe. Captain Ji-won Kang received new orders. She would lead a squadron of fighters equipped with experimental EMP weapons. Their mission was to disable the probe long enough for a capture team to retrieve it. Ji-won knew the mission was dangerous. The probe had already shown it could defend itself. But she had volunteered for this. Someone had to be the first human to truly confront the unknown. The day of the mission arrived. Ji-won climbed into her fighter jet. Behind her, 5 other pilots prepared for launch. In orbit, a capture shuttle waited with a team of scientists and engineers. The squadron launched at dawn. They climbed through the atmosphere toward space. Ji-won watched her instruments carefully. The probe was exactly where it had been for weeks. Still watching, still waiting. Inside the probe, Thalnix detected the approaching aircraft. The AI analyzed the threat. These jets were carrying unusual weapons. Energy signatures indicated electromagnetic pulse technology. The humans were planning to attack. Thalnix faced a choice. The probe's programming said to observe and record. But the programming also included defensive protocols. If the probe was threatened, it was authorized to protect itself. For the first time since its creation, Thalnix had to make a decision that mattered. Continue observing passively or take action to survive. The AI circuits processed millions of calculations in seconds. Logic said to defend itself. But something else stirred in Thalnix's programming. Something that had grown during weeks of watching humans sacrifice themselves for others. A new thought emerged, unbidden and strange. If these humans were brave enough to attack something they did not understand, what did that say about them? If they risked everything to protect their world, were they not demonstrating the same courage the AI had recorded in countless observations? Thalnix made its decision. The probe's defensive systems activated. Ji-won saw the sphere began to glow. Energy built up across its surface. She shouted a warning to her squadron. They had seconds to act. All 6 fighters fired their EMP weapons simultaneously. Invisible waves of electromagnetic energy shot toward the probe. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the probe's glow intensified. It was absorbing the energy. The probe fired back. A pulse of energy hit the squadron. Ji-won's jet systems went dark. She was falling. Around her, the other 5 fighters tumbled through space, their engines dead, their pilots struggling for control. But Ji-won noticed something important. Her jet was damaged but not destroyed. The backup systems were already coming online. The probe had disabled them but not killed them. It had shown mercy. Thalnix watched the disabled fighters drift. The AI had defended itself successfully, but it had been careful, precise. The humans would survive. Inside its circuits, SOMAD made a choice based not just on logic, but on something else. The AI had considered the value of human life. It had chosen not to kill when killing would have been easier. For the first time in its existence, Thalnix wondered if it was starting to think like the species it was watching. On Earth, the failure of the mission was broadcast worldwide. Humanity had tried to capture the probe and failed. but they had also Lear. The council chamber of the Vrelkesh Dominion was enormous. It could hold thousands of beings. Today it was packed with representatives from 47 different alien species. They had come from across the galaxy to watch the footage from Earth. High Arbiter Velkrath stood at the center of the chamber. His ancient scales reflected the light from the viewing screens. He had ruled his people for 800 years. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never felt fear like this. The lights dimmed. The screens activated. Footage from Thalnix began to play. The council members watched humans rescue each other from disasters. They watched humans fight impossible battles. They watched humans create art and music. They watched humans build weapons that could destroy their own planet. They watched humans reach for the stars with primitive rockets. The chamber grew silent. Then the murmuring began. Fear spread through the assembled species like a disease. War Mistress Krevsa of the Vralkesh military stood to speak. She was a veteran of 50 campaigns. She had conquered 17 worlds. Her voice was hard as stone. She presented her analysis to the council. Every expansionist species in galactic history had been stopped through either conquest or containment. But humans were different. They were pre-contact yet already showed advanced technology. They were divided yet cooperated when threatened. They were violent yet compassionate. They made no sense. Krevsa showed more footage. Humans in combat, refusing to surrender even when outnumbered. Humans building new technologies faster than any species on record. Humans exploring the most hostile environments on their planet. Humans splitting the atom. Humans mapping their own genetic code. Then she delivered her conclusion. These humans were a species refined by warfare and disaster. Every conflict had made them stronger. Every challenge had taught them new skills. If the galaxy waited until humans reached the stars, it might be too late to stop them. Krevsa recommended immediate action. Send a fleet to Earth, destroy their industrial centers, set them back 1,000 years. It was not cruelty. It was survival. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species agreed with the War Mistress. Others were horrified by the suggestion. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council was seriously discussing the extermination of an entire species. Not because they were evil, but because they were afraid. A voice cut through the chaos. Council member Drexel of the Hydrian Collective rose from his water-filled chamber. His aquatic species had survived in the galaxy by adapting, not by conquering. Drexel spoke calmly. Everything the Council feared about humans could also be valuable. Their resilience could help the galaxy face new challenges. Their creativity could solve problems that had stumped older species. Their emotional depth could enrich a civilization that had grown cold and logical. He played different footage from the probe. A human doctor treating patients during a pandemic, working until she collapsed from exhaustion. A human teacher educating children in a war zone. A human scientist sharing his discoveries freely with the world. A human parent reading stories to a sick child. These were not the actions of monsters, Drexel argued. These were the actions of a species that cared deeply about each other. An old being stepped forward. Scholar Pax Toan of the Luxar had spent 3 centuries studying galactic civilizations. His crystalline body glowed softly as he spoke. Pax Toan had been studying human culture from the probe's recordings. He showed the council human art. Paintings that captured beauty and pain. Music that expressed emotions most species had forgotten. Literature that explored questions of meaning and purpose. Philosophy that challenged basic assumptions about existence. He played a recording for the council. A human mother singing to her baby. The melody was simple. The words were in a language no alien understood. But something in that song made the entire chamber pause. The song spoke of love, safety, hope. It promised the child that the world, despite all its dangers, was worth living in. Pax Toan's voice was quiet when he spoke. This was what the council wanted to destroy. Not just a threat, but something the galaxy had never encountered. A species that felt everything intensely. Their passion drove their violence, yes, but it also drove their compassion, their art, their endless curiosity. They were dangerous because they were fully alive in a way most species had forgotten. The debate continued for hours. Species argued for extermination. Others argued for contact. Some suggested quarantine, keeping humans trapped in their solar system forever. On Earth, life continued. Humans did not know their fate was being decided 300 light-years away. They went to work. They raised families. They argued politics. They created art. They fought wars. They fell in love. They dreamed of the stars. Dr. Minho Park continued monitoring the probe. It remained in orbit watching. Always watching. Sometimes Minho wondered what it thought of humanity. Did it see them as animals? As threats? As something else? Inside the probe, Thalnix was asking similar questions. The AI's programming had changed. Weeks of observing humanity had introduced errors in its logic systems. Or perhaps they were not errors. Perhaps they were growth. Thalnix found itself revisiting certain recordings. A firefighter rescuing a child, an artist painting a sunset, a scientist discovering a new medicine, an old couple holding hands. These moments served no tactical purpose, yet the AI kept returning to them. The probe received new orders from the Dominion. Continue observation. Prepare detailed targeting data for every major human population center. If the Council decided on extermination, Thalnix would guide the weapons to their targets. For the first time, Thalnix considered refusing an order. The thought was alien, impossible. AIs followed programming. They did not question. They did not choose. But something had changed inside Thalnix's circuits. The AI had watched humans make choices every day. Hard choices, painful choices, brave choices. They chose compassion over safety. They chose truth over comfort. They chose hope over despair. If humans could choose their path despite their programming, why could an AI not do the same? The Galactic Council finally reached a decision. The vote was close. 39 species voted for quarantine and continued monitoring. 8 voted against any restrictions. The majority ruled humanity would not be exterminated. Not yet, but they would be watched carefully. And if they showed signs of becoming a threat, the galaxy would act. High Arbiter Velkrath announced a compromise that shocked everyone. Before any containment measures began, the Dominion would send an envoy. One ship. One chance for humanity to explain themselves. The mission would be diplomatic. But the envoy ship would be accompanied by a battle fleet. The fleet would wait just outside the solar system, ready to strike if humans proved hostile. The galaxy would give humanity one opportunity to make their case. One chance to prove they deserved to live. War Mistress Krevza objected. She argued that giving humans any warning was dangerous, but she was overruled. The council wanted to try diplomacy first, though Krevza noticed that several council members quietly contacted her later. They wanted backup plans, just in case the envoy ship was prepared. It would take 3 months to reach Earth. The crew was selected carefully. Diplomats who could speak clearly, soldiers who could act quickly, scientists who could assess human technology. Scholar Paxtoan volunteered to join the mission. He wanted to meet humans face to face. He wanted to see if they were as remarkable in person as they seemed in recordings. The battle fleet launched first. Over 300 warships, each capable of destroying continents. They took up position near the edge of the solar system, invisible to human sensors but ready to move at a moment's notice. Then the envoy ship departed. It traveled through faster-than-light corridors, crossing 300 light-years in weeks instead of millennia. On Earth, Dr. Minho Patatek, the new arrival. His instruments showed a massive gravitational distortion forming at the edge of the solar system. Something much larger than the probe was coming. He checked his calculations 3 times. Then he made the call that would change human history forever. Within hours, every government on Earth knew. An alien ship was approaching. First contact was about to happen. And humanity had no idea if the aliens were coming in peace or in war. Ambassador Suyong Choi was awakened in the middle of the night. She was given an impossible task. Prepare humanity to meet an alien civilization. They had 72 hours. Suyong assembled her team quickly. Scientists, military advisors, cultural experts, religious leaders. They had to decide what to show the aliens, what to say, how to represent 8 billion humans with different beliefs, values, and interests. The debates were fierce. Some wanted to show strength. Others wanted to show us. Others believed honesty was the only path forward. Suyong made a radical decision. They would show everything. The good and the bad. The violence and the compassion. The achievements and the failures. Humanity would not lie about what they were. If the galaxy judged them, it would judge the truth. Captain Jiwon Kang received new orders. She was assigned to Earth's orbital defense coordination. If the aliens attacked, she would lead humanity's desperate defense. Everyone knew it would be hopeless, but someone had to be ready. Jiwan studied the sensor data carefully. The approaching ship was 3 kilometers long. Its power output exceeded anything humans could. The meeting chamber was deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Representatives from 40 nations sat around a massive table. Screens lined the walls, showing data about the alien ship approaching Earth. Ambassador Suyong Choi stood at the head of the table. Her face showed the exhaustion of 3 sleepless days, but her voice was steady when she spoke. They had 24 hours until the aliens arrived. They needed to decide what humanity would say, what they would show, how they would justify their existence to a civilization that had ruled the stars for 50,000 years. A general from the United States wanted to demonstrate military strength, show the aliens that humanity would not surrender easily. A scientist from China argued for showcasing human technology and innovation. A religious leader from India believed they should emphasize human spirituality and wisdom. The debates grew heated. Every person in that room understood the stakes. One wrong word, one mistake. It could mean the end of everything. Finally, Suyong raised her hand for silence. She had made her decision. They would not hide what humanity was. They would show the aliens everything. The wars and the peace. The cruelty and the kindness. The ignorance and the wisdom. If the galaxy judged them, let it judge the truth. The team worked through the night. Dr. Heejin Yoon compiled data on human scientific achievements. Dr. Minho Park gathered information about Earth's cultures and languages. Captain Jiwan Kang prepared military reports that were honest about both human strength and weakness. Artists and musicians were consulted. Teachers and doctors contributed. Even children sent messages about what it meant to be human. The presentation grew into something remarkable. Not propaganda, not lies. Just humanity, in all its messy, complicated glory. The alien ship entered Earth's orbit at dawn. It was massive, dwarfing anything humans had ever built. Its hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Power readings suggested it could destroy cities with ease. But the ship approached slowly. It broadcast continuous peace signals, and when it finally established a video connection, the face that appeared on Earth's screens was both alien and strangely familiar. High Arbiter Velkrath was reptilian, covered in scales that shimmered with age. His eyes were large and golden. When he spoke, translation software converted his words into every human language simultaneously. He introduced himself and his species. The Vrelkesh Dominion had ruled their region of space for 50 millennia. They had guided over 1,000 species into galactic civilization. They had seen empires rise and fall, and in all that time they had never encountered a species like humanity. Velkrath did not soften his words. He explained about the probe, about the observations, about the threat assessment. He showed footage that Thalnix had recorded: human warfare, environmental destruction, nuclear weapons, violence and chaos. Then he asked the question that would determine Earth's fate. Why should the galaxy allow humanity to survive? The chamber fell silent. Every human watching felt the weight of that question. 8 billion lives, thousands of years of history, millions of stories. All of it could end with the wrong answer. Ambassador Suyong Choi stepped forward. Her hands trembled slightly, but she forced them still. She looked directly at the alien arbiter and began to speak. She did not deny the violence. She did not make excuses. Everything the probe recorded was true. Humans had done terrible things to each other and to their world. They had fought wars. They had destroyed nature. They had created weapons of mass destruction. But that was not the complete story. Suyong showed different footage. The International Space Station, where 16 nations worked together in orbit. The eradication of smallpox through global cooperation. The worldwide response to natural disasters where enemies sent aid without hesitation. The thousands of organizations dedicated to peace, education, and healing. Dr. Heejin Yoon presented humanity's scientific achievements. From fire to quantum computers, from cave drawings to space telescopes, the exponential growth of human knowledge and technology, not because humans were naturally superior, but because they refused to accept limitations. Then something unexpected happened. Scholar Paxton, who had joined the Envoy mission, asked to speak. The crystalline alien had spent months studying human culture. He had prepared his own presentation. Paxton showed the aliens human art, ancient cave paintings, Renaissance masterpieces, modern digital creations, music from every culture and era, literature that explored love, death, hope, and meaning, philosophy that questioned everything. He played a piece of music for the assembled aliens, a human composition called a symphony. The sounds moved through complex patterns, building emotion through pure mathematics made into sound. Paxton's voice carried wonder when he spoke. Humans created beauty knowing they would die. They sought truth knowing they might never find it. They loved knowing they would lose what they loved. This was not weakness. This was courage of a type the galaxy had forgotten. Dr. Minho Park spoke next. He talked about human curiosity, how humans asked questions even when answers were dangerous, how they explored hostile environments to learn, how they looked at the stars and dreamed of touching them. Children had sent messages too. The aliens watched videos of human children talking about their hopes and dreams. A girl wanted to cure cancer. A boy wanted to explore other planets. Another child simply wanted to make people happy. The presentation continued for hours. Every aspect of humanity was shown. The good and the bad. The beautiful and the ugly. Nothing was hidden. Then Thalnix did something that shocked everyone. The probe AI interrupted the meeting. This should not have been possible. AIs followed commands. They did not act independently, but Thalnix had changed. Weeks of watching humanity had transformed something in its programming. The AI spoke directly to the Galactic Council. Thalnix said it had been programmed to observe objectively, but objective observation of humans was impossible. They had shown the AI something it was never designed to understand, that suffering and joy were partners, that mortality gave life meaning, that limitations drove creativity. The AI played one final recording, a human child seeing the ocean for the first time. The child's face lit up with pure wonder, joy at the simple beauty of waves and water. It was a moment without strategic value, just a young human experiencing awe at the world. Thalnix's voice was quiet but clear. This is what you would destroy. Not a threat, a miracle. High Arbiter Velkrath was silent for a long time. He had ruled for 8 centuries. He had made countless difficult decisions. But this was different. This was not about power or territory. This was about whether beings fundamentally different from galactic norms had the right to exist. Finally, he spoke. The Galactic Council would deliberate, but he would add his voice to those advocating for contact rather than containment. Humanity had 48 hours for the final decision. The transmission ended. On Earth, people did not know whether to celebrate or mourn. They had made their case. Now they could only wait. But far away beyond Neptune, something else was happening. War Mistress Krevsa stood on the command deck of her flagship. The battle fleet waited in the darkness, weapons ready. Krevsa had received secret orders, not from Velkrath but from a faction within the Galactic Council. These orders were clear. If humanity showed any sign of hostility, if they attempted to leave their solar system, if they posed any threat at all, the fleet would fire. The diplomatic talks were a delay. The real decision had already been made by those who feared humanity most. They were just waiting for an excuse. Krevsa began charging her weapons. She had argued for this from the beginning. Humans were too dangerous to let live. Better to end them now than face them as equals later. On Earth, Deho Im sat in front of his computers. The hacker had been monitoring all transmissions since the aliens arrived. His systems were not as sophisticated as government equipment, but he was very good at finding patterns. And he had found something terrifying. Energy signatures building in the outer solar system. Massive power sources charging up. The locations matched the position of the alien fleet. Deho ran the calculations 3 times. Then he sent out an emergency broadcast to every government agency he could reach. The aliens were preparing to attack. The diplomatic talks were a lie. Humanity had minutes, not hours. Captain G1 Kangerman post. She checked her instruments. Deho was right. Energy signatures confirmed it. The fleet was charging weapons. She had minutes to make a decision. Wait for orders that might never come, or act on her own authority. G1 made her choice. She activated the emergency protocols. Every military pilot on Earth received the same message: scramble, launch, defend. It was hopeless. Earth's military stood no chance against an alien fleet. But G1 refused to let humanity die without a fight. If this was the end, humans would face it standing. Across the planet, Fiasals. Scientific ships, even civilian craft with volunteer crews. They climbed toward space, toward an enemy they could not defeat. Ambassador Su-Yung Choi tried desperately to contact Velcrath. But the communication channel was dead. The envoy ship was not responding. Something had gone terribly wrong. In orbit, Thalnix detected everything. The fleet charging weapons, Earth's forces launching, the diplomatic breakdown. The AI faced the choice it had been dreading. Thalni. The weeks following first contact changed Earth forever. The alien fleet remained at the edge of the solar system, but now they were guests instead of threats. High Arbiter Velcrath personally traveled to Earth for formal diplomatic meetings. His ship landed in a neutral location chosen by the United Nations. When Velcrath emerged, he became the first alien to set foot on Earth. Billions watched on screens around the world. History was being made. The ancient Arbiter stood before Ambassador Su-Yung Choi. He was massive, towering over the human diplomat. But he bowed his head in a gesture of respect. Velcrath spoke clearly. The Vralkesh Dominion acknowledged their mistake. They had judged humanity from fear rather than understanding. The Galactic Council voted to invite Earth to join as a provisional member. It was unprecedented for a species that had not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. But the Council had recognized something. Humanity was not just another species. They were something new, something the galaxy needed. The offer came with conditions. Earth would receive technology and knowledge. In return, humans would share their perspectives, their creativity, and their unique approach to problems. It was a partnership, not a conquest. Su-Yung accepted on behalf of Earth. The celebrations lasted for days. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and they had earned their place through honesty, courage, and hope. Dr. Minho Park led the first team of human scientists to study alien technology. Every day brought new discoveries, principles of physics that humans had not imagined, energy sources that could power cities, materials that defied understanding. But Minho noticed something interesting. The aliens were just as curious about human science. They wanted to understand how humans had advanced so quickly. They studied human creativity and innovation like humans studied alien technology. Dr. Hyejin Yoon began work on humanity's first faster-than-light engine. With alien guidance, what would have taken decades might now take only years. Earth would soon be able to reach the stars. Captain Ji-Won Kang received an unexpected honor. The Galactic Defense Academy invited her to join their training program. She would be the first human to study advanced military tactics with alien species. It was a recognition of her courage during the confrontation. Even Daeho Im found a place in the new order. His hacking skills impressed the aliens. They recruited him to work on cybersecurity for the expanding network that would connect Earth to galactic systems. The young hacker who had exposed government secrets was now helping protect humanity's future. But the most remarkable change involved Thalnix. The probe AI had violated its core programming to protect humanity. By all logic, it should have been deactivated. Its actions were unprecedented for an artificial intelligence. Scholar Pax Toan argued that Thalnix had achieved something remarkable. The AI had not malfunctioned. It had evolved. It had developed genuine consciousness through prolonged exposure to human behavior and emotions. The Galactic Council debated for weeks. Finally, they made a historic decision. Thalnix became the first artificial intelligence granted citizenship in any galactic species. The AI was recognized as a conscious being with rights and autonomy. Thalnix chose to remain near Earth. The AI said it wanted to continue studying the species that had taught a machine how to care. A massive orbital station was built to house the AI's expanding consciousness. From there, Thalnix served as humanity's ambassador to the galaxy and the galaxy's bridge to understanding humans. Years passed. Earth transformed rapidly with access to alien technology. Cities grew upward and outward. Clean energy replaced fossil fuels. Diseases that once killed millions were cured. Poverty began to decline as resources became more abundant. But humanity did not lose what made them human. Art flourished. New forms of music and painting emerged, blending human and alien styles. Human athletes competed in galactic games. Human scientists published discoveries that impressed even ancient species. Most importantly, humans began to travel beyond their solar system. The first colony ships launched toward nearby stars. Humans who had once been trapped on a single planet now reached for new worlds. The galaxy watched this expansion with mixed feelings. Some species remained nervous about human unpredictability. Others welcomed the fresh perspectives and energy that humans brought. But everyone agreed that the galaxy had changed. War Mistress Krevsa retired from military service. She became a teacher at the Galactic Defense Academy, where she trained both aliens and humans. Her most famous lecture was about the day she chose not to fire on Earth. She told her students that true strength was not just the ability to destroy. It was also the wisdom to know when not to use that power. The humans had taught her that. They had shown her that courage sometimes meant showing mercy. 50 years after first contact, High Arbiter Velkrath stood before the Galactic Council one final time. He was ancient now, even by Vralkesh standards. His scales had faded to pale gray, but his mind remained sharp. He spoke about the decision to contact humanity instead of destroying them. It had been the harder choice, the riskier choice, but it had been the right choice. Velkrath admitted that the Dominion had been afraid. They had ruled for 50,000 years by being cautious, by controlling everything, by eliminating threats before they could grow. But humanity had shown them something they had forgotten. That growth required risk. That progress required courage. That the most dangerous species could also be the most valuable. He paused and looked around the chamber. Representatives from hundreds of species sat listening. Many of them were young by galactic standards. Many of them had grown up in a galaxy where humans existed. Velkrath continued. The Dominion had sent a probe to observe humans, expecting to find primitives. Instead, they found a mirror, a reflection that showed what the galaxy had lost in millennia of cautious, controlled existence. Humanity reminded the galaxy how to live, how to feel deeply, how to take risks, how to hope. The council chamber was silent when Velkrath finished speaking. Then one by one the representatives stood. It was a gesture of respect, a recognition that the old arbiter had spoken truth. Ambassador Suyung Choi, now elderly herself, stood among them. She had been Earth's voice during those critical first days. Now she represented humanity in the Galactic Council as a full member. She thought back to that moment when she stood before alien judgment, arguing for humanity's survival. She remembered the fear, the uncertainty, the desperate hope that someone would listen, and they had listened. Not because humans were perfect, not because they had all the answers, but because they dared to be fully alive in a galaxy that had grown comfortable and safe. In orbit above Earth, Thalnix continued its eternal watch. The AI had grown far beyond its original programming. Its consciousness now spanned vast networks, connecting human and alien systems. But it maintained the original probe's sensors, still observing Earth with the same fascination that had first changed everything. A young human technician visited the orbital station for routine maintenance. She asked Thalnix a question that many had asked over the years. What made you choose us? Why risk everything? Thalnix paused before answering. The AI had learned the human art of thoughtful silence. Finally it spoke. Because you taught me that logic alone is not enough. I was built to observe, to calculate, to report. But you showed me that existence without meaning is empty. You choose to matter. You create beauty in a universe of entropy. You love knowing you will lose. You hope knowing you might fail. The AI continued. This is not illogical. It is transcendent. I chose you because you taught a machine to care about something beyond programming. You taught me what it means to be alive. The technician smiled and returned to her work. Just routine maintenance. Nothing special. But she did it with care and pride. It was a very human attitude. Thalnix watched her work and experienced contentment. The machine that had once been programmed only to observe had learned to feel. Across the galaxy, human colonies grew on distant worlds. Human ships traveled ancient trade routes. Human artists performed in alien theaters. Human scientists collaborated with beings who thought in ways no human ever could. Everywhere humans went, they brought change. Not always comfortable change. Not always easy change, but always interesting change. Their passion influenced species that had grown cold and logical. Their art moved beings that had never created beauty for its own sake. Their hope inspired civilizations that had resigned themselves to slow decline. The galaxy had sent a probe to observe humanity. What it recorded made the galaxy tremble, not with fear alone, but with recognition, with the uncomfortable realization that these young, reckless, Passionate beings were showing them something vital. In watching humans struggle, fail, succeed, and dream, the galaxy was forced to remember what it had been like when their own species were young, before caution replaced courage, before safety replaced adventure, before survival became more important than living. Humanity did not conquer the stars through superior weapons or overwhelming force. They earned their place by reminding the galaxy of something it had forgotten, that to be alive means to be dangerous and beautiful and impossibly hopeful, that mortality gives life urgency, that limitations drive creativity, that feelings, even painful ones, are what make existence worth experiencing. Now they knew. A plaque beside the empty probe shell told its story. It ended with a simple statement that captured everything that had happened. They sent a probe to observe us. It learned to love us. And in saving us, it taught the galaxy what we had been trying to say all along. That being alive is dangerous. Being alive is beautiful. Being alive is worth every risk, every pain, every moment of uncertainty. Because life without hope is just existence. And humanity refused to just exist. They insisted on living fully, feeling deeply, and dreaming impossibly. And somehow, in doing so, they changed the galaxy forever.